science is awesome, but science can only tell you how things work, not why.
What if a male changes to a female and then they are able to genetically engineer or modify their body to produce offspring? Does that change the dynamic of whether or not it should be acceptable?
The idea that every human is equal is originated from Christianity. If you remove God from that equation, it's not obvious that people have equal value.
Does he represent the cringe side of the argument?
No, he represents the ignorant but cool side of the argument.
Yeah, that's right. It's him. Ignorant but cool. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Shot Takes. Tonight, we have a special guest, Ben Medoff. He's one of my closest friends from college, and we're going to be talking about religion and the Catholic Church today. So, Ben, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself for the audience and, give us an idea who you are.
Sure. I'm Ben. I am a Catholic first, but I love games. My favorite games tend to be video games, board games, whatever, especially co-op games. And in my faith, I especially like and participate in ministry to youth and young adults. So that's me.
Alrighty, perfect. So if you haven't been to the show before, this is Shot Takes. It's a talk show. We do a shot for each question. We have 6 questions that we go through, taking about 20 minutes each, and it's on this roulette shot chamber prop here, and in each of these cups is our shots. And we have 3 different drinks tonight. One is E&J Apple, one is Fireball, and then the mystery shot is going to be tequila. So that's going to be the more painful one, at least for me.
Oh boy.
It was pretty bad last time, so it should be fun this time. So, Dave, if you have the first question ready, you can go and send us away.
Yeah. So, question number 1 of the night. What religious figures do you draw inspiration from? Saints, prophets, everyday people?
Okay, sure. I think people in my own life are definitely the people I take the most inspiration from. Saints definitely, but I often find saints harder to relate to. But a great example of someone who's been really impactful on my faith life is my sister. My sister is like the most joyful, loving person you'll ever see, and radiates joy in her faith. And that's something I've always wanted to emulate. It's been complicated. It's interesting because when I graduated college, I actually was not I'd sort of had drifted a bit away from my faith. It was funny though, because I really got into the philosophy part of the faith at that time. Going over all the proofs for God's existence and a lot of the philosophy undergirdings of the faith.
I would guess that'd be a completely different definition for whatever you're putting into the context.
The underwear of Catholicism.
Getting down to the genitals of faith.
I wonder if anybody has ever uttered that sentence before. Getting down to the genitals of faith.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I do want to bring it back to, we haven't taken a shot yet.
Oh, yes. I really forgot. Sorry.
I blame you.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and spin the thingy. We got a lot going on today, so.
Ka-chunk.
Thanks for catching us there, Dave.
Yep.
All right. I'll try not to look at these because you can kind of tell what they are beforehand.
Yep.
All right, cheers, man.
Cheers. While you're sipping that, I gotta say too, you came up with genitals of faith completely sober, 0 shots in.
I guess it's my fault for using the word undergird.
That's a stretch. That's
Can we
more
bring up
Tim.
undergird on the screen, please? So to kind of set the temperament here for everybody who is new to the podcast, I myself, I consider myself an agnostic. We've only really had agnostic or people of limited faith on the podcast. So I wanted to bring Ben on for a while because he's actually a devout Catholic. And this isn't to more or less like question Catholicism, because I'm not a very religious person. It's more to learn from Catholicism and get some answers that maybe I wouldn't have been able to get anywhere else, because I respect Ben's opinion. He's a very smart dude, and it's hard to be religious in today's society, especially for people of youth. So
shout out to Matt too, very very fantastic man of Protestant faith too, who's been on our podcast before. We didn't forget about you. Well, actually, what I want Ben in this chair, Matt in the other. Fight. Make it the 14th century, baby. Let's go.
Thing is, in this day and age, I think Protestants and Catholics have more in common than they do different, compared to the rest of the world, especially. So
yeah, but that doesn't drive YouTube engagement.
Oh, my bad.
It doesn't mean fight.
It's just heretic.
So Matt, if you're listening, debate 2024, it's coming.
Yeah. And Dave, he's mentioned it a few times before, but Dave used to be a religious man as well, but now he is no longer as religious, I guess I would say.
Yeah. I put myself in the camp of disappointed agnostic.
Yes. Point phrase.
Patented. If you use it, you owe me 25 cents per use.
Yeah, we're going to start it. We're going to make it an official government sanctioned religion, so that we can file it with our tax write-offs. So you mentioned not being able to relate to saints. Is there a reason for you not feeling like you can relate to them?
So saints, like, I don't know if you've ever read anything about saints, but they often have like things you'll read about them is like, oh, this person always loved church growing up, and like they were always eager to be in front of the Blessed Sacrament. And it's not that saints don't go through struggles, but they don't, it depends on the saint. There are you can definitely find saints that have more struggles in their faith, but they have such religious inclinations that often feel foreign to people who feel more worldly, I guess. Mm-hmm. It's just I can't relate to wanting to be in adoration. That means praying in front of the Blessed Sacrament for 2 hours. Just I don't know. It's boring. Church is boring.
I would love it.
It's yeah, so it's just hard to relate to their religious fervor a lot of times, but yeah.
I like to think of a video game, you're sitting there praying, you're just slowly building up power. Do you ever get to use your ultimate at any point? Did they get ultimates? Give us an example of a saint. For people who don't know what a saint is, myself included, can you explain exactly what a saint is?
Okay, well, so technically speaking, a saint is just anyone who's in heaven, but there's a distinction of canonized saints. Canonized saints are people that the church has confirmed are in heaven.
So it's like manga canon too.
Manga canon.
I don't know anything about manga canon, but sure.
Has a saint ever been retconned?
Well, yes, because the canonization process was much less strict in the past.
Really? Yeah, so people have been retconned?
Yes. Well, there are some saints who probably weren't even real people. They probably didn't exist. Because oftentimes, sometimes what happened is, as Christianity integrated with local cultures, gods or important figures in those cultures would be integrated into the new Christian culture as saints, even if they never existed. But nowadays, there's a whole vetting process. In order to become a saint, you have to have 2 verified miracles.
So what small miracles, big miracles, they
don't have to be big. They don't have to be that big, but essentially most common miracles are healing miracles. So if for example someone has cancer and a bunch of people are praying for them, and then they are healed,
the spirit bomb.
If they're healed to doctor's flabbergastment or whatever.
Yeah.
Obviously you can't prove that something is a miracle. When a doctor sees someone being healed, it's just the disease was there and then it wasn't. Obviously we have no idea what the cause of it was.
Right.
And that's an example. And the church has pretty thorough investigations of this stuff now. So it usually takes a little while for people to become saints.
Oh wait, so modern people become saints?
Yes, yeah. There's still people becoming saints.
Do you know of any modern examples that you can name?
Oh yeah, Mother Teresa is a saint now.
Okay.
So I don't know. She died. I don't know when she died. Like the 2000s, though, right?
So verified miracles indicates I would use Windows.
Gotcha.
Verified miracles indicates that they are doing something truly profound. 1 second.
So
before we get on to that, you mentioned Mother Teresa like being able to do that. What exactly did she do that's like a verifiable miracle?
To be specific, it's not a miracle you do during your lifetime. You have to be dead, and then someone has to pray for your intercession, and then that miracle happens through their intercession.
Oh, okay.
How do you know it's Mother Teresa instead of like, Jesus or I don't know?
So here's a distinction, because this is an important thing that Catholics have versus Protestants, is that Catholics believe in praying to saints for intercession, which means like when I say, Mary, pray for me or whatever, I'm not saying like, Mary, I need help with whatever. I'm not saying, Mary, you do this. Mary does not heal the person. Mother Teresa does not heal the person. When someone prays for Mother Teresa's intercession, they're saying, Mother Teresa, pray to God for me. And then God is always the one doing the healing or the intercession. So the miracle is always done by God.
Oh, so it's like channeling through like an intermediary.
Right.
Yeah.
So the idea of why you want to have those miracles to prove it, that to canonize them, is that like if that person's really in heaven, then their intercession will be more powerful in getting God's help. It's probably more complicated than that, but philosophically speaking. But the idea is, if you pray to them and they're actually in heaven, their intercession will be effective. Yes.
That makes a lot of sense now. And if the common viewer who isn't like super religious, if you said that you're saying to yourself that you knew what a saint was before that, comment, you're lying to yourself. That has taught me a lot already in the first 5-10 minutes of this podcast, and I thought I would never expected to learn that much about like sainthood and stuff. So you mentioned saints that you couldn't really connect with, in the sense that they are constantly praying and they're constantly like devout. Like,
right.
Do you think that there is a saint that isn't as devout as that?
Yes,
you could?
Definitely. So it's not uncommon to find Catholic books that are specifically dedicated to like highlighting saints that have more like troubled histories or pasts. There's one book, or one saint, like I have a book called Pray For Us that's about these saints. There's this one saint who was addicted to opium, and this is like pre like mental health and addiction psychology and things like that.
Right.
So the priest that he would see just like refused to give him confession, which is for sin forgiveness in the Catholic Church, because he thought, this guy's not really serious about his sins because, he keeps taking this opium, which obviously, nowadays we would say that's because it's a disease. It's not something that, he has a lot of control over. But back then it was just like, no, you don't care about your faith at all. You keep doing this.
Yeah.
And so it's a story about that. And, the reason he became a saint is because he eventually died as a martyr because he lived in China, and China was cracking down on Catholic or Christianity in general at that time. But yeah, there's definitely more saints than just the, this person loved praying and whatnot. But the majority of them have more simple stories where they're just, very devout. Devout and prayerful.
It's only been one shot, Ben.
I'm also drinking a carbonated beverage.
Oh, yeah. I guess that's fair. So
you yelled at him to get the chaser. You did this.
I did. So in regards to like prophets and stuff like that, like, is Jesus actually the last prophet, or who's the actual like last prophet, like verifiable prophet?
The word prophet is sort of not that well defined in Christianity.
I guess what I really want to know is, who's the last person who verifiably had communication with God?
Everyone who's ever lived now. Communication with God, like when you pray in Christianity, that's communication with God. Like, and so people have a lot of Marian visions, especially. People receive information and words sometimes from God nowadays, and we believe that people are actually talking to God because we believe God exists.
Okay.
So we would say that people are still talking to God. There is, I'm not that well versed in it. There's technically like a distinction about revelation. Like Catholics don't believe that any revelation has happened after Christ, but I don't know enough about the specifics of that. And that's about like God's plan for humanity and specifically salvation focused, but not just like talking to God in general.
Yeah, I guess I don't mean like spiritual experience in like this superficial kind of sense. I mean like burning bush like levels of like undeniable, like I'm actually having a physical conversation with him as opposed to more of a spiritual conversation with him.
We would say that's still possible. And there are probably, I would venture to say that it's likely there are some people who have that experience in their relationship with God now. It's not something that Catholics would say is like done happening.
Yeah, I mean, I really want to get as like why hasn't it happened again for a while? But you're saying that people do
So here's an example of like miracles in general are something that people are like, oh, miracles are a thing of the past. Like I don't agree with that. Like there are still miracles. A great example of because Marian apparitions are a very I don't know, it's very Catholic miracle thing that to happen.
Catholic brand.
Yeah, Catholic brand.
Marian apparition being seeing Mary.
Yes, seeing Mary, correct. Gotcha. And so like one of the most famous ones that happened in the 1900s was Our Lady of Lourdes. I don't remember, but that was one that was witnessed by like hundreds of people.
What happened?
I'd have to look up specifically, but like one of the things that happened is the sun started moving around suddenly in the sky. I don't remember anything else other than that, honestly.
I'm looking at that for you.
The sun started moving around. That's pretty. I would think a lot of the planet would be able to see that.
Mary of Lourdes,
right? But it's not. I mean, it's probably just a vision, not like literally the sun moved away and nearer and further from the Earth.
Okay.
And there's also like Our Lady of Zaytun or something like that, which was a apparition in Egypt that was also seen by a lot of people. So I guess, yeah, my point, I guess, is like I think like when you read the Bible, it's like, oh man, like great things are happening all the time, like because here's an event. But like one of the things you have to remember, and they actually there's a couple times they comment about this in the Bible, is that like it's actually not like every person, like common in everyday life, that someone sees a pillar of fire leading them to whatever. Mm-hmm. Like these visions and great acts of God are actually even less common. It's just that those are the things that are written about, right? And so it's sort of like I don't remember the name of the bias. It's like
confirmation bias.
No, not confirmation bias. It's like bias of what gets
survivor's bias.
What gets written about, like you have this bias in the news nowadays too. Like conservative media is much more likely to pick up a story that fits their narrative, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a bias based on what gets reported. I don't remember the name of it, but like it makes it seem like in the past, oh man, there were so many miracles and appearances of God, but like those get written about. And so like obviously in people's everyday lives, they hardly encounter that. It's much less common.
So was the majority of society, I vaguely at a certain point, I guess like after the Roman era, was the majority of society like religious in the European like areas? Like were they all like, if you were to take 100 people, like would like 90 of them be religious, or like 100?
Like when in the medieval era?
Yes.
They would all be religious, but part of that is just because you weren't really allowed to not be religious.
Yeah. Do you think that there's any like issues with that, or do you think that that's like overall good? Do you think that people should have really a choice, whatever?
Yeah. I definitely, yes. You definitely should be allowed to be religious or not religious. Like the First Amendment, freedom of speech, like the freedom of thought is definitely really important.
But wouldn't it be like contradictory to the goal of religion, which is to make sure people aren't without God or, burning in hell, to just make them believe in it, just to save their soul, as opposed to giving them the
because that's
choice?
not how you get saved. Like this is, I mean, I'm sure this is something that actually Catholics and Protestants disagree less than people think, actually. But like the goal is to like have people love and serve God. And if you just point a gun at someone and say, profess faith in God, that's obviously not, they're not going to love and serve God just by saying, Lord, Lord, right?
Tell that to the Spanish conquistadors would disagree with you and then point a gun at you for that one.
Yeah. So yeah, the church has had a different positions on this in the past, for sure. I don't know a ton about it, but the church would definitely not support that now.
It's not the point of faith. Basically.
Yes, yeah.
The point of faith is not profess or die.
You don't save people by forcing them to profess, because saying I believe in God doesn't just save you. That's not how it works.
I don't know. I feel like if I was really devout, and not to like say that you're not devout or anything like that, I would think the forcing people to be religious is overall like it's insignificant what your will is actually, if the weight of the loss of your soul for all eternity is at stake.
But my point, it's not even effective. Like,
what do you mean?
Like your will has to be in loving and serving God. If I just force you, that doesn't save you. You're still going to go to hell.
Let me put it to you this way. Let's say that I was like a modern day like megalomaniac person, and I like went on a crusade of my own, right. And I went through town to town and I baptized everybody and immediately killed them afterwards. They're guaranteed to go to heaven, correct?
No.
Why not? They're baptized.
It's not saving faith.
It's not. Yeah. Baptism is not effective if the person doesn't also will the baptism.
Well, I mean, that's the other thing too. Is like, I would assume a lot of Catholics, even like any really religion, there's always that amount of doubt. At what point is the doubt like the amount of doubt good enough to get into heaven based on your faith?
Like doubt in your faith?
Yes. Like how much doubt are you allowed to have before it's like acceptable then by that metric?
I mean, probably a lot. Like Catholicism has a lot, like I've used the word a lot. Catholicism has a lot of emphasis on will. So like if you disagree with the church on stuff, if you don't believe in God, but if you are following your conscience, and like oriented towards the good, like that's the most important part. So if you have doubt in your faith, but you still are working towards it, you're putting your will into it, like that is the most important part. So it's less about knowledge or desire, and it's much more about will, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. I mean, it's just like the time aspect of it's really hard, because like it's assuming that people are going to live until they're X amount of years. Like some people don't live that long, right? Like some people die before they're 18 or like before they're 25 or whatever else, and they have I mean I'm 32 and I still grapple with like faith and like what I should believe in or whatever else. At what point are they enough of themselves to really have that kind of faith? I think like at what point are they like consciously able to really decide for themselves?
Like what age you mean?
Like how much time should pass before it's like they're like certain that what they're doing is like true to who they are?
I mean, usually everyone struggles with doubts in their faith life. So honestly, you can struggle with doubts your entire life and still get to heaven.
I would still expect somebody who's younger to have much more doubts,
right?
Or at least not like super young, because like some kids like you yourself, they grow up in a Catholic family, and it's like very much like a part of their like habits to go to
Right.
church every Sunday or whatever else, as opposed to somebody who isn't. And then they get out of their house and they kind of get the ability to kind of shop around and see what appeals to them and their moral compass and everything like that. You know, like they might become a really religious person later in life, but whenever they're like 18, 19, 20, like there's going to be an immense amount of doubt, I'd expect. And is that like, in my mind, it's not fair, but
It's
Yeah, I mean, Ben, I think this could be answered maybe by giving your perspective on what saving faith is, or what is the thing
what
that
gets
gives
you
you
into
redemption.
heaven.
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
So
Because that would help explain it a lot more. I think Tim's thinking like
Right.
you have to do X, Y, Z
So-
or B, X, Y, Z.
So here's the Catholic Church teaches that whether you get into heaven or not is your choice. This has some complications, which makes me probably have some heretical views on hell. But like what that means is like when you die, whether or not you go to heaven is just whether you choose to be with God or not.
right.
It's not like I still don't quite understand it because there's a lot of like words around judgment and stuff, but the main point is that it's whether you want to be with God in the afterlife. And like to some extent, like the way I try to explain it is like if you like in regular life right now, like, you know, following God to a lot of people is very unappealing, right? Because if you follow God, that's more responsibility. You know, there are things that the church says you can't do. You know, you have to devote time to like prayer and, you know, like church and other things I've described that I've said are boring. And so like to some extent, like that, like heaven is often described as like eternal praise to God. Like if you die, like the options are between sort of like doing whatever you want or like, you know, devoting your life to God. And so I like this is why kind of in my opinion I have borderline heretical opinions on hell. Like it doesn't make sense to me that hell is like physical pain and torture, because anyone who died would never choose to go to hell, because it's like, why would I want that?
Right.
Hell is separation from God, and it makes more sense to me, at least, like why people would choose to not be with God, like because if, you know, it's similar to why people would choose not to be with God in this life, because, you know, church and praying is boring and doing what I want is fun and easy.
Do you think they're trapping out in hell?
I really have no idea. Like my complete speculation would be more that hell is nothing. Like it's just like,
Oh, I would love it if it was
Oblivion.
just nothing. That'd be so real. I wouldn't want to be conscious for eternity. That's so fucking long. But we do have to move on to the next
right,
question.
sorry, yep.
So if it truly is a matter of just your choice on what you do, you're choosing oblivion.
I would love oblivion. That would be so relaxing. Because then you're just
It's
done.
so relaxing. No, you don't exist anymore,
Why do I
bozo.
wanna
You
exist
can't be
for eternity?
To
relaxed.
clarify, by nothing, I don't actually mean oblivion. I just mean like chilling,
Chilling
like with your thoughts or whatever.
for eternity.
Oh, okay. My perspective would have been a little bit different, because I would have looked at God being the source of all good. So then to be separated from God is to be separated from all good,
Right.
sustaining life, love.
No, yeah.
happiness.
I've definitely,
The whole concept of
I
the
understand that. I definitely heard that.
The cool concept of the
before as
afterlife
well.
has like always been so foreign to me too, because there's the concept of a soul, but like so much of your personality is derived off of your physical being. So like, how much do you change when you die? Are you just still yourself? Like, what does it mean to have yourself? Do you still have urges if you don't have a physical body? Like,
Great
do you still
question.
have the same mentalities? Like, let's say you get shot in the head at some point in your life and that affects your brain chemistry. Does that change who you are? Does that change your soul and gives you, do you have any diminished, capacity to choose God? Those are like really tough questions that unfortunately we're going to have to pass on. This will be all motherfucking night.
The Bible does talk about that, I will say. It calls it the flesh.
Yeah, but I
So,
won't put Ben in a position to answer those questions. I think they're pretty tough questions, and I don't think that's fair because I'm trying to learn more for you than just like combat faith at this point. But let's move on to question number 2.
Okay. I really wanted to ask about the trajectory your life would need to take. You know what I'm talking about?
It was on here. Yeah, what trajectory would your life need to take to be a given sainthood?
Can you please let him answer that for like 30 seconds?
All right, good. What trajectory your life need to take to enter sainthood?
Well, yeah, first part, just going to heaven makes you a saint. So like
Confirmed.
right. So just try to grow in my faith with God. Second part, in order to be a canonized saint, I'd probably just need to do something that's more external in my faith. So maybe a good example might be like throwing myself into my young adult and youth ministry. If I had such an impact that I, brought more people and was an impact on a lot of people, that would be something that if I was joyful and, effective, then that might make me more likely to be a canonized saint, because people would be like, oh, this guy was so cool and so holy. I'm gonna pray after he die. I'm gonna pray for his intercession.
What if we ever reach a point in society where like TikTokers and YouTubers become canonized saints, and
Mr.
like,
Beast,
and people just like praise like, Mr. Beast, give me strength.
I mean,
and the miracle works is if enough people say, Mr. Beast, give me strength, right? Eventually, some miracles are gonna happen, right? Like. Anyway,
that's possible, I guess.
This is very heretical. I'm sorry, but
it's not really heretical.
Fair.
The second question of shot takes. We're gonna go and do our drinks here. Go ahead and spin it up.
Yep. I'll go ahead and spin her up. I'll get the question going here. Question number 2. Is there a Catholic priest shortage? Production chain issues, I'm guessing, from the pandemic?
Yeah, there definitely is a Catholic priest shortage.
Oh, there is something to that? Okay.
Shortage. It's not production chain issues. It started way before the pandemic. Yeah, it's actually kind of interesting, because as a young adult Catholic, like a guy, because only guys are allowed to be priests in the Catholic Church.
I have concerns, but continue.
There's definitely like, it's not a strong pressure, but there's definitely a light pressure, like to become a priest.
Yeah.
Because like it's a very common prayer to pray for more vocations to the priesthood. Vocation being like just a call to the priesthood.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, it's not like, as far as I know, it's not like the church is going to collapse dire, but like it's very common for parishes to merge into, like, churches to just merge into one parish,
right?
Because they just don't have enough priests.
That is one of the things when I was doing research for this question, I did see that in like a Reddit thread where it would lead to like overpopulation issues in like a certain congregation or like inside of a building for whatever else, and they won't be able to fit everybody in there or get new people because they don't have enough priests to allow all these people in there. So I mean, you mentioned in relation to the priest shortage, there's a bit of a pressure to do it. How many people in your church end up actually going and doing that kind of thing?
I would say like it's probably like one person per parish per generation.
Or really?
Maybe like probably not per generation, probably per like 5 or 6 years. It's one, probably like 10 years. I'd say roughly, this is just my experience at Corpus, like we get one person every 10 years becomes a priest from our parish.
Oh, becomes. I thought you meant like goes to like try and become a priest.
Well, it's probably more than that go into seminary. It's probably like once every 4 years or something that someone goes into seminary from our parish. But it's not that fast. And especially with how much emphasis there is on formation, only like 50% of people who go into seminary actually become priests.
Why is that?
It's long.
How long is it?
It's 7 years if you already graduated from college, and
7 years,
and 9 years if you go in without college.
I didn't think the Bible was that big.
It's
it's not just the Bible.
It's more. The thing is, there's a lot of church history and church teaching and just like practical stuff you need to learn. Recently they've implemented like a whole spiritual year, which like because my brother actually was in seminary for a year, and all he did was spiritual year before he discerned out. But like,
what does that mean? Spiritual
so
year?
spiritual year is you basically stay in like a house, I guess, with the other men on spiritual year with you, and you take time to pray. I know you do two silent retreats. One is a week and one is 30 days.
30 days.
Yeah,
What is a silent retreat?
retreat.
What it's like a monk. You just like walk around like this.
Well, yeah, you seriously spend 30 days where the only time you talk is to your spiritual advisor.
Holy crap.
And that's only like an hour a day or something like that. And so you don't talk to any of the other people at the retreat. You aren't praying the whole time. So like my brother described, he took a lot of walks, he did a lot of reading.
Do you think they sneak in some whispers here and there?
No.
I don't think so.
They're there by choice, Tim.
Yeah,
Yeah. Nobody's forcing them here. Why are you so militant about religion? It's like they're under a repression.
It's like a prison, right? Like people are gonna break the rules in prison. I mean, like even if
they're not in prison, though.
Oh, we're such bad boys. We're whispering.
It's probably, I'm sure it's probably happened before, but it's like, they're trying to, they're trying to participate in that. So I mean, because that's one of the reasons there's a large dropout rate, because they really try to prepare you for like what being a priest is like. Like as a priest, you actually are required to pray the liturgy of the hours, which is like a 20-minute prayer 4 times a day.
Holy crap.
Maybe like 15 minutes, but like it's a real devotion to your faith. And especially in the Roman Rite, like you also are taking a vow of chastity too. So
for your whole life.
Yep, for your whole life.
So they can't get married then?
They can't get married. Nope. There are other rites, like the Orthodox priests can get married, but I don't know if you want to talk about that at all. But
the
Orthodox, you're not Orthodoxy, right?
No.
I mean, if you have knowledge on it, you can feel free to. But I mean, we're looking at it from the Catholic angle since it's what you have the most experience with. But whatever you want to talk about, if you know about it, so.
Sure. I guess just to wrap up the last point, though, like, yeah, the dropout rate is high because there's just so much focus on your faith and learning and discerning and actually being in right relationship with God. But yeah, about taking the vow of chastity. Interesting fact: the original reason that the church instituted that was because the church back in the Middle Ages owned a lot of property. And so what people would do is they'd become priests to get church property, and then their kids would become priests. So they'd essentially just have
their kids?
Yes, because
I thought they took a vow of chastity.
I'm telling you why they instituted this, because
it's coming from.
This didn't exist in the early church.
I didn't know that. I thought it came from what Paul said. That'd be better to remain even as I.
I mean, I'm sure there probably were people who took vows of chastity, but it wasn't a requirement to become a priest.
I see.
But because there was this whole using the church to pass church property through your family, that was the original reason they decided to institute it, was actually purely just to be like, this is church property, not your property. Okay. But nowadays the main reason is just because having two reasons. One, it's practical. Like imagine if churches are already losing attendance. Imagine if the church also had to support the priest's entire family, or if a priest is on last priests actually go on call for last rites duty. It's actually kind of interesting. But imagine if it's like, I need a priest to give me last rites. It's like, oh, sorry, my wife's out and I'm home with the kids. I can't give you last rites. So it gives the priest a much greater availability, and the ability to be there for his congregation.
Yeah,
he's
that's biblical
married
too.
to the congregation.
Right. Well,
Yeah,
he's married to the church.
The church,
Yeah.
Which is larger than the congregation. But yes.
So one other thing I wanted to touch on, we got like 6 minutes left. You were a youth minister, I guess, or you are, I guess.
I volunteer with youth ministry. Yes.
So what does that look like? Like are kids more or less receptive to religion in the congregation? Do they ever express like their feelings about combating like their doubts and faith based on modern culture? Like, do you guys have any strategies you guys use to try and keep people involved with the church?
Yeah, it depends a lot on the kid. Like some kids are just, naturally more like rational and like thinking through their faith. We have a kid right now who's, oh my gosh, he reminds me so much of me. He's so funny.
Yeah.
But like he's like super heady and like is often asking questions about like, why does the church teach this? Why does the church teach this? But like yeah, the thing about youth ministry, the kids we minister to are almost always into their faith to some extent. Otherwise they wouldn't be there.
Right.
So we absolutely try to give them information about the faith, but when it comes to youth ministry, the real killer that makes people stay in youth ministry or leave youth ministry is just whether they have friends in youth ministry. Because the other thing is they go to youth ministry because it's fun or enjoyable or whatever, not because they want to learn about new things in their faith. Usually, I mean, they're teenagers. That's just not something that interests them as much. I guess the other thing I want to comment on is that one of the strongest things that invites them into their faith specifically are retreats.
Yeah, I think we have like some resources too. If you want to pull that up, you can continue. You do our own retreats.
Yeah, so like specifically, a very big one is Franciscan University of Steubenville holds like retreats that like 3,000 Catholic high schoolers go to, or not like Catholic, you know what I mean, high schoolers who are Catholic, and like they do such a good job of explaining relationship, and bringing Jesus to them. Yeah, well, so this resource is actually I love this paper. So
I'm gonna punch it in a bit more.
So if you actually want to click on the link there at the bottom that opens up the PDF document. We are absolutely not going to read the PDF document. No. It's very dry, but
listen, teach,
send. You just leave it on
send it, baby.
The title page here. Like, the church has had a lot of recent emphasis on mission being missionaries because we live in a more agnostic age. But like one of the things is like focus on ministering to kids and growing them in their faith so that they can be witnesses of their faith to other people. And this is what a lot of this document is about. Listen, because this is such an important part about building relationships with people in general. Listening is huge. So
what'd you say? I didn't hear that.
So you like fucking asshole.
So like if your kids just view you as like a teacher, like it's just so much less investment from them often. So it's very important in ministry to like hear what the kids are saying, try to address their needs. We often ask them what they want to hear about, even just like what games they like. Just that's such a huge thing. Teach. This is just like it's obviously, as I said, we don't want to see them as teachers, but there's an important aspect of teaching to like so they understand what their faith is about and how they can more effectively live out their faith.
Before you move on, you said you don't want to be seen as teaching? Because you're not qualified?
Don't want to be seen as teachers. Like we don't have the same, like, our goal is to build more of a relationship with our teens like sort of like the cool homeroom teacher would have, rather than like just the English teacher in general, or like your math teacher.
You're the cool uncle.
Cool uncle,
sort
not
of,
the cool
I guess.
dad.
Like,
You want to go to the other page?
like we have more in ministry. We have more of an opportunity to like know the person and walk with them in their life, rather than a teacher, because a teacher, their time is exclusively devoted to imparting some knowledge to them. Our job is less about, like, part of our job is imparting knowledge, but it's we have to have that relationship, because it's what, you know,
it's a good foundation if you want to get their trust and be able to talk to them.
Yeah,
right?
it's just important to building a culture of loving each other, loving God. Having that relationship is like a framework for that, almost. So, and then send. The thing is, evangelization in an age where everyone already knows about Jesus and already has a preformed opinion about Jesus has more to do with living your faith authentically and living it well. So like in a sense, sending basically just means, you know, we've informed these kids, they understand how to live their faith, we listen to them, we've helped them grow in their faith, and now they go to school and they just make friends with other people. And, you know, it's not usually effective to be like, hey Tim, become Catholic now. I have to remind you every 10 minutes that I want you to become Catholic. Like people don't respond to that. People are most likely to become Catholic or change their opinion when they go through a life crisis. And so the most effective way is just to be authentically Catholic. And if someone, you know, starts questioning why their life meaning or whatever, then
the first person that pops in their head.
Right. They might be like, oh, you know, I want to ask this person some questions. And being that person and being able to share your witness is honestly sometimes the most effective way to evangelize to people. And so essentially part of the goal is to prepare these kids so that, you know, they can be authentic friends, and if they're in that situation, they can, you know, speak truth in the Lord. While yes, you know, they can speak to their witness.
I got you. I mean, that makes sense. I mean, it seems like a logical process. It seems like it has a good framework for retention. You know, build trust with your clergy. I don't know what the word is for it. Your other, I don't know,
your target audience.
Your target audience, right? Yeah. So, is there anything else in this document that you want to go over before we switch to the next topic?
Yeah, that's all you need to see.
Yeah, I mean, I know that this seems like a pretty effective strategy. I saw some other stuff you were talking about before, but we're going to go and move on to the next question here so we can stay on track.
Okay.
We're going to go on question number 3 of Shot Takes. You feeling good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right. Question number 3. What other challenges does the Catholic Church face, such as youth engagement, loss of faith in American culture, brief shortages, etc.?
Well, let me take this shot first.
Yeah. Ooh, it's Fireball.
Anybody hit the tequila yet?
No.
Not yet.
I will be screaming when I see it. So. Can you put the little cappy things in here?
What are the biggest challenges the church faces?
What are some other challenges? Our big doesn't be biggest. You know.
The church has a big problem with catechesis right now.
Oh boy, let's continue as if we know what that is, Dave. And just feel it out as we're going through this. Hold on. Guess what catechesis is before he tells you what it is.
It's a move that Goku uses where he shoots cats at people. He goes, Kamehameha, and a big little kitty cat comes out with its claws.
This is the Meow Mix song.
Catechesis. What is catechesis, Ben?
Catechesis is just teaching the faith, essentially.
Okay.
So the reason it has an issue with this is because there are a lot of Catholics who are not practicing. So like they just don't know a lot about their faith. So one of the big problems the church has is informing its less devout members of the faith. And you know, if you're Catholic, you'll hear about this a lot about CCD or REC, basically religious education classes for kids. Incredibly boring. Kids hate them. And often
that's why we got VeggieTales, baby.
Oftentimes, people want to reform that to, you know, keep kids engaged and keep them in the church.
You know what you should spearhead, Ben? With your coding knowledge and every programming, whatever, you should make Roblox religious-based interactions.
No,
why not? I mean, that's an effective way to engage the youth.
See, you do it like Dante's Inferno or Pilgrim's Progress, right? You create each level be a part of faith that they have to overcome or learn.
Engaging kids is not about making Christian Minecraft. I mean, it can be.
Have you tried it?
It's possible that can be a useful tool. I think VeggieTales is a good example of that, using the medium of animation to be
true
to be a more effective teacher and engager in people's faith. But like, it's just more about engaging people in the essentials of their faith more. Like, one of the biggest problems that our current catechesis has is it's very memorization focused, which I'm sure as people who have been to school, you're like, wow, that sounds interesting and fun. I love memorizing stuff, especially just the things the priests wear. Like,
I think that's one really big deterrent for people that are looking inward on faith, especially someone like me who has not zero, but like next to no experience with the rituals of Catholicism.
Right.
There's just so many nuancy things that it feels like you're always failing. Like, you were to start doing it for whatever reason, like in your 30s or whatever else, you would probably feel like you're always doing something wrong. Like, in the sense that like you're not good enough, I guess is the way, right? Like, because there's always some ritual you're not following to a T, right?
Oh, ritual purity is by far the least. So I don't know if you've ever heard people talk about Catholic guilt, but
contextualize it for us, please.
The reason people talk about Catholic guilt is because Catholics, as opposed to Protestants, will not say you are saved. So, like, as a Catholic, sinning to some extent is always putting your prospects at heaven in jeopardy or something like that. So as a Catholic, you would almost certainly be much less concerned with whether you're saying the right thing at Mass, because it's just not, like, Mass is important and you should pay attention to Mass, but like so much more that you'll be worried if like you become Catholic and, you know, believe in Catholicism is like, oh man, like I think that there's a quote in the Bible that's like, be perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. God knows you won't be perfect, but like, the standard is not something that's feasibly reachable. So you're much more likely to be concerned about your soul in that, oh, I keep sinning and failing, than you are to be about, oh, I didn't memorize the right thing. And
do you think there's like even more memorization nuances in heaven, or do you think it kind of chills out and you just get to exist?
I don't think you have to memorize anything in heaven, because in heaven you're just in communion with God. So
what does that look like? What does that look like?
I have no idea.
Could you give a guess?
I would love if in God's throne room, so they talk about, in Protestant faith at least, they talk about God's throne room with like the cherubim, the seraphim, and all the people singing, worshiping God and all that. I would love if there's just one seraphim that just kind of forgot the words of the song, which is like, that's good. Because we all do it, right? We just kind of mumble along because we're like, oh crap, I forgot that one. There.
the echo's there. You're good. You're gonna worry about it. Yeah. So like, what do you expect heaven to really be like? Like, how much different is Catholic heaven from like Protestant heaven from like any other church heaven?
Catholic heaven and Protestant heaven, I think, are generally pretty similar. I don't think anyone's will really give you a very specific answer, because heaven is well, okay, that's actually not true. I'm really not qualified to speak on this at all, but basically,
who else is? I mean, like, minister, your youth minister, right? Like you should have
No. I have not taken theology classes on heaven. Is what I mean. Like, but like
these are whole subjects that you're asking about, Tim.
So
you ask about salvation, then you ask about heaven. Like that's whole like branches that like people look at.
That would be like my so like you're spending like generically 0.0001% of your existence in this life. Why would you not be concerned to learn about the other 99% of your existence?
Here's what I know about heaven. Heaven is communion with God. Communion with God is in right relationship and alignment of will or something like that. So like it's a act of love towards God or a disposition of love towards God. So in heaven, you're loving God is really what you're doing.
What does that mean? Like, yes, you're like loving God. Does that mean you're both like sitting in the living room watching Netflix? Like what does that physically mean?
Year 55,999. Are you still there? Pops up on the screen.
Can you take the trash out? Like it's been 3 weeks, guy.
Midnight Mac again. Here we go.
You eat anything
Mac
else?
and cheese. Oh my gosh, this is awful. We're all in trouble.
You gotta work on it. There gotta be communication. Right now, there's no communication. That's just really pissing me off.
I don't know. It's hard to describe to someone who's not Catholic. But there's times during prayer that you often feel more peaceful and more connected towards God, and you feel what Catholics like to distinguish joy from happiness. It's like a feeling of meaning and like rightness.
Contentment, wholeness.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
And so like oftentimes that's what's described as like you take that like what you feel in your best times during prayer with God and then multiply that by 1,000 and like that's heaven or something like that.
Yeah, I love that you can find that. That's really great. That's like one thing that is like I'm gay, so like I don't really have a connection with God. I mean, not that being gay is a qualifier. It's like you're not religious, right? Like some people are, and I've talked to some people that were, but you know that's got to be nice to have that kind of certainty in your life, right? But I don't know. I'm just so not necessarily rationally driven, but like I am definitely like physically driven based off like I have to physically be able to see and feel everything that I derive my evidence from, you know, and that's so hard to just take actual just generic faith and just believe in something just for the sake of believing something and it having zero influence on my childhood or my upbringing or why are you all snickering?
I don't know, Ben's snickering, so I'm snickering. No, it's good. You're letting your heart out.
No.
I'm sorry, Tim. We interrupted him in the middle of his monologue, his anime monologue moment.
I'm about to go my villain arc after this.
I'm sorry, Tim.
Anyway, sorry.
It's so I have very strong like faith is fundamentally trust. And then the second thing that from what you said that really rubs me is
rubs you where in the genitals of
no,
faith?
Oh my lord.
No.
And it's too soon for me. I had that happen to me at the TSA today, so please don't mention that.
Enough rubbing for the day.
That's enough rubbing.
We're all rubbed out.
like I love philosophy. Science is awesome, but science can only tell you how things work, not why. Not like why things exist, why. And so like trying to understand religion through the lens of science is a category error because science only covers the physical world because that's the whole point of science.
I totally understand a lot of people feeling like they're using like science as a weapon against faith. I'm not that person. And granted, I would use some scientific arguments for why faith is likely not the answer. I'm looking at it from a rational aspect. Like, is it fair for someone who doesn't have faith to be put on the same like pantheon, the same like fighting arena as everybody else who grows up in a family that has an immense amount of faith in their habits and stuff?
Yeah, sorry. But the other thing, what I mean to like clarify about faith is that like faith, most importantly, is the trust in your relationship with God. It's not like, it is a little bit about like believing in God. Like obviously you can't trust in God if you don't believe in him. But like faith is not like, you know, I just accept this because it's about like, you have rational basis. I mean, you don't have to, like, it's totally reasonable to just follow your conscience. But like if you have a rational basis in faith, awesome. And then the point of faith is like trusting God where human limitations fail. Something like that, yeah.
Okay. No, I mean, like, there are definitely things that are... Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt you either, but to Ben's point that I might help you with, if I think I understand what you're getting at, is that the scientific method is a tool, but using it in matters of faith is like using a hammer to try to drive a screw. It's not what it's meant for. You need an actual drill or a screwdriver.
I bet my ass faith. I could fucking hammer that screw in if I needed to.
Yeah, but then you have a stripped out thread that doesn't work anymore. You know, and then you're like, oh, screws don't work. I'm going back to nails.
It's more like trying to use a ghost hammer to nail a physical nail rather than a real hammer.
But the ghost hammer is the scientific method, right?
Something like that. Yeah.
Okay. Do you believe in ghosts? I mean, I guess you kind of have to based on your faith, right?
So I believe in spirits. I believe in demonic or fallen angels, and I believe in human spirits. I would say human spirits are much less likely, are much less likely to stick around. I would guess that they are not on Earth anymore, but I definitely do believe in fallen angels. Yes.
Okay. So the concept of a fallen angel, right? It's so foreign to me because, like, you just know what the truth is. You know that God is the creator of everything and he is the almighty being. Why would an angel choose to reject that?
Because choosing God requires great humility. Choosing yourself is very easy. Like, because this is what I was describing before when we were talking about heaven. Like, even if you know how, like, because one of the Catholic teaching is that angels know all the consequences of their decision before they make it. But if you know, like, even if you know God personally, like, you still might say, you know, this guy's boring. This guy's, you know, full of himself. I'd much rather do what I want to do. Like, it's just about, if you are more self-focused, like, the appeal of God is so much less, if that makes sense.
The whole concept of a fallen angel suggests that humans could be thrown from heaven too, right? Is that a possibility?
No, because there's no time in heaven, and in order
stasis.
In order to change your mind, or in order for change to happen, you have to have time. So there's without time, you can't change. So theoretically,
does God exist in a black hole?
No, he exists outside of time.
Yeah.
So because one of the consequences of that is that it does also.
Don't you need time to feel joy?
No, I mean, it's hard because it doesn't require change. I mean, it's hard to describe. I mean, that's the thing. That's one of the reasons it's so hard to describe heaven, is because heaven is outside of time, and it's not primarily material.
Spiritual. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, you're literally a flesh and blood creature trying to understand something that's not flesh and blood world.
Right. It's like trying to understand Eldrazi in Magic the Gathering.
That's a great segue. I'm so glad we found a way to shoehorn Eldrazi into the Catholic discussion. Please tell me about Ulamog the Destroyer. Sorry, no, real quick. There's something on your left eye. Your left eye.
I just changed the camera to him so I can see it.
Did I get it?
Yeah, stage left.
Stage
My goodness.
The problem is you put your finger on your left eye, so I was like, oh, it's like this, like the same
No,
eye.
I try
here.
my best to like
That's
make it as
fine.
easy as possible for you. God
right.
damn it!
That's a good topic. We ready to move on?
Yeah, well, I was definitely ready
That's
to
a
move
good
on.
segue.
Yeah, that's a good segue. Unless you want to get the Ulamog discussion rolling.
No, I think we're good on that.
He's not qualified for that one.
So, hopefully you talked about everything you wanted to on that topic.
Yep. Good for me.
Okay. Whenever
Am I
you're
allowed
ready.
to say the Q word?
The keyword? Go ahead.
Yeah. All right.
The
Could be a
keyword.
slur against gay people, but I'll say it. I got the Q word pass, everyone, before I say it.
Oh, that keyword. I thought you meant like queued up, like tee it up.
Oh, like a British person.
You know, I'll go ahead and say it, just to kind of,
Yeah.
yeah.
And if I say it without a hard R, is it fine?
What?
Dude. God, I need to spin it.
Whatever, I'm gonna read it.
As long as you're ready for the potential consequences.
Does
Okay, so
being queer have to be a deal breaker for believing in God? Christian. Does being gay have to be a deal breaker for
That's the
believing in
tequila
God?
shot.
Oh, you got tequila?
you didn't react at all.
Oh, he's
Ben's a
chasing it
savage.
though.
It's not that bad.
Taking these shots with faith.
Faith in God.
Giving him strength. So yeah, so this is obviously like a very modern question in the sense that I feel like a lot of people are unwilling to believe in faith. It boils down to the acceptance of gay people, queer people, whatever else. And I think that if that was not a factor, I think that would open the doors for a lot more people to be religious. Do you think
Right.
that needs to be a core value of faith in order for them to become religious?
I think the answer is yes. Specifically, just so I'm clear, I believe that in order to enter into the wholeness of your faith as a what's the word? Non-cis. The word for non-cis. I don't know. The
Listen, man, I'm 4 shots in.
whatever.
LGBTQ.
Yeah, just say LGBT.
You cannot, or you should not believe in the morality of homosexual acts. That's what I think.
Oh,
You know,
homosexual, lesbian, whatever, you know.
So yes. So specifically, the inclination or the state of being gay or whatever is not a sin, and that's fine. That's not an issue. But in order to enter into the fullness of your faith, I do think you have to believe that the homosexual acts are wrong.
So I guess that makes sense, but like I guess I'll frame it this way. Could you be married to another dude or a chick married to another chick or whatever else and still be Catholic, Protestant, whatever, and still be able to achieve being able to go to heaven?
I mean, you could. I mean, that's the thing. Catholics don't claim to know who goes to heaven, so it's possible you could go to heaven, but we would definitely say that you're not. That's the thing. Not living in the fullness of your faith. You're not obtaining the full grace. You're sinning. So it's possible you could go to heaven, but you would not we would definitely say you're not properly living out your Catholic faith. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, I would compare it to like some people masturbate or some people like steal or whatever else, even though they are still religious. Like, is being gay that much worse than stealing or masturbating or anything like that, in the sense of actively pursuing it?
It's not any worse, but the biggest issue is being repentant for your sins or not. If you don't believe it's a sin, you obviously won't be repentant for it. And so you can't get forgiven for something that you don't have any contrition for, you aren't sorry for. And so like there's definitely a possibility, like the church thinks that if you cannot do something through no fault of your own, which can even include thinking, just believing something wrongly can be through no fault of your own, you can still get into heaven. So being a human, then there's a lot of things you could fall short on, but yeah, it's more of a problem because you wouldn't be repentant for it. So like, if you are a Catholic and you masturbate and you're not repentant for it, that would be equally as bad. But if you're repentant for it, then that's better. I mean, obviously you still shouldn't sin, but that's better because then you can get forgiven of that sin and be right with God in some way.
So here's a question for you, what you believe. Do you believe that sin is retroactively applied to Jesus' torture on the cross? So in other words, if you sin right now in the current time, like right this second, does that go back in time? Not really, but whatever. And actively add to Jesus' torture?
I don't fully understand that, Dave.
It's a very theological question.
So that might be a bit beyond some of the audience, so you just want to kind of break it down a bit more.
I don't know, really.
So when Jesus died on the cross,
my guess would be no, but I really could not back that up with any argument. I haven't really thought about that enough. Sorry.
So that's fine. So the point of Jesus dying on the cross is that he took everybody's sins on himself. So all that wrath that people should have experienced, he experiences it. So to actively live in sin.
So he's tanking.
He's tanking.
Unironically, yes.
So wait, so who's the DPS and who's the healer in this holy trinity? That's what I want to know.
I don't know. I don't know a lot about Mother Teresa. Maybe she's the healer. I got my Mother Teresa build.
So if you're actively living in sin, you're actively defying God and causing more torture
probably
to Jesus.
Yes, actually, I guess, because redemptive suffering. But yeah, I don't know. I would have to think about it more and probably. I don't have enough devious knowledge to synthesize an answer for that.
Fair enough. My point is, Tim, is when you're sinning, you're actively like harming God. Is the idea?
Wow.
Yes.
I mean, like, what is
like
harm to God, though?
Well, because Jesus was supplication, so he took the place. It's like like how they used to sacrifice. I'm speaking from a Protestant perspective.
Here's a more secular of how you hurt God.
Bring it on.
If you have a friend and your friend keeps making bad choices, is not living up to their potential. Let's say they have no drive, for example, and don't want to make anything of themselves. Like, you're like, come on, man. I know you can do better. I know you can go out there and, get a better job and, not just live your life, just doing nothing like that. Like, especially like it's easier to explain to a parent, because a parent with a kid like that it's like especially obvious. Like, that's the kind of pain you deal to God. Like you could be living so much better and doing so much more good, but you're just wasting your life away. Like, that's the kind of pain that you deal to God.
But by I like cocaine.
I would argue too, it's like your friend's living with you too, and you're paying their bills.
Right. Yeah.
And they're actively draining from whatever you're trying to do with your life.
Right.
So does that help at all?
No, I mean, I just wanted to, because like, for me, I think that it could solve a lot of Catholicism's issues and religious issues. I don't know, I don't have the statistics in front of me, but I assume that religion is on decline with youth, with the specificity that the modern culture is very much about, giving people rights. And it kind of seems contradictory that people don't get a chance to live their life because they're born feeling a certain way. And unlike being a thief or, having an inclination to masturbate or whatever else, it is much harder for somebody who is born gay or transgender or whatever else to become religious than it is for somebody who is heterosexual and has those other tendencies that work against them.
I mean, you're absolutely right. The church's calling to homosexual people is much harder than it's calling to heterosexual people, because it's saying you can't get married and you can't have sex, right? That's literally what they're saying.
Yeah.
Which is tough. But the thing is, the church is not the goal of the church is not just simply to make everyone Catholic. It's to, bring everyone towards God. And that comes with absolute moral convictions. And that you just can't compromise on that, unfortunately. I mean, maybe not unfortunately. Depending on your perspective, unfortunately.
God damn it, Ben. So there's one other aspect of it. I know that Pope Francis, he's a more not necessarily liberal, but a modern pope.
Yeah.
Progressive
pope, which I think that you need, right, in a society that is constantly evolving and changing and developing their own morals without religion.
Right.
Because America was traditionally very religious. I think 70-80% religious. Now it's 65, whatever else.
Something like that, yeah.
But he, as you know, gay people are allowed to get married in America.
Right.
And
yep.
In my mind, it's I know that a lot of conservative Republican types are going to say that gay marriage should not be allowed because it's not in essence of what marriage is supposed to be, as a community between a man and a woman.
Right.
But it serves a governmental societal function, which is to combine property and to make yourself one house or whatever else.
Right.
But Pope Francis gave I don't know if if there's an article I have underneath there or not, but if there isn't, he gave priests the authority to bless.
I know exactly. I know what you're talking about. Exactly.
As far as I'm not educated. I hope you can bring some more enlightenment to it. But he gave priests the ability to bless these people on their acknowledgement of being married, but it is not still recognized by the Catholic Church. Do you foresee that ever changing to where they're yes, marriage is fine between gay couples, but it is still not accepted by the Catholic Church as an official marriage? I don't know. What do you think about that?
The church will not change its opinion on that. I mean, I guess it's possible if the church, it's highly, highly unlikely. The thing you're referring to is not is not about blessing the marriage itself.
Okay, well,
so
elaborate.
The thing you're talking about from the Pope is about blessings in general, and the point of it is to say that you can bless people who are in homosexual relationships. What this means is priests bless people at all in general. A priest's blessing is a bestowment of grace upon people. A priest blesses you after a confession. But it's, I think even in the document that came from the Vatican, it describes that this blessing is not supposed to be used to bless the marriage. It's to bless the people, because the point of the blessing is to grant God's grace to them. We don't want to deny. The point of the document is described that we don't want to deny God's grace to anyone, because that can help them and change help them grow closer to God.
Does that conflict with anybody, you or your church, or do they think that people should be allowed to be in gay relationships, or do you think that they're just not?
Well, I know for sure there's definitely people at my church who are that are in favor of having it be legal.
Okay.
Because they find it oppressive. So there's definitely people in it's actually very funny, because one of the people who is one of the ministers to youth, or the people who helped out the youth group when I was in youth group, was like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's very funny. But that's not the teaching of the church. The reason the church, just the short version of the reason the church teaches that, or says that it should be not
Do
legal
you need a moment? Should I get you some paper?
is because it acknowledges something as marriage which is not marriage. The church would be less against something that they did not call marriage. Like, it's like if for like, I'm sure you've heard like the term civil union or something like that thrown around. The church would be less against something that's not adopting the term marriage, because the church emphasis is on keeping marriage as a sacred sacrament between a man and a woman.
Well, it's the church's fault for fucking putting it into government in the first place. It should have been a government function, right? Like, sorry, I'm sorry, Travis. Now,
Why do you think that's the church's fault?
Because they combined it with government function. If they didn't want it to be called that term when two parties are combined, they shouldn't have called it marriage. They should have called it a civil union in a government function, right?
Well, the thing is, for like the past, like previous to 1940 or 50 or whatever, like everyone just agreed that marriage is between a man and a woman, so it didn't matter because they agreed secularly and religiously. So there's no point in making a distinction between a civil union and sacramental union. But you know, because here's the thing. And I'm speculating here, but I don't think gay people want legal rights. Obviously they want legal rights. I don't think the main point is that they want to have the legal tax exemptions or stuff. They want to be recognized as having valid marriages. Is that not correct?
That's it. Yeah.
Like that's what the church is against. It's against recognizing these man and man or woman and woman marriages as valid marriages. It's not against them having some legal tax exemptions or something like that. The church cares less about tax exemptions.
Right.
It's about the cultural idea of marriage between a man and a woman.
I would tack on spiritual too. I mean, it's the first sacrament: be fruitful, multiply. Adam and Eve made for each other.
Right.
I mean.
So wait, let's combat that.
I'm sorry for interrupting you. I need to fix you fixed it.
Sorry. Yes,
I needed to either fix the camera or have you sit back.
He was leaning in. He was going in. He was in crusade mode.
He didn't want to bring out the guns earlier, but oh boy. He bring up the gay marriage thing. No, I'm just kidding, man. What were you saying, Tim?
No, I mean, I want to learn. I want to understand, right? Like your opinions on it, because to me it seems obvious that like you should respect the people's decision to unify and have a successful relationship. But I understand that the purpose of the religious foundation is to enable production of more children to further society, right? Like you can't have everybody be gay because then there are no kids to further society. That doesn't make any sense, right?
You're being very pragmatic about it.
That's such an unreligious argument.
I know. This is why religion's not for you.
It's not about furthering society. It's about living up to your potential in your life with God and close. It's like
He's gonna reach across and choke you.
It's fulfilling your potential as a person made in God's image.
Listen, you can stay on the breeder side of the table. I'm gonna stay over here.
Divider right here.
Moral ambiguous side of the table.
Tim's like playing like a game of Civ. He's like, if I pick this spec, it'll increase my population.
I mean, like religion's for me, religion is created to create a moral foundation that is just obvious things that is necessary for society to function. Because you ignore like the 10 Commandments, whatever else, those are things that would lead to a society that is not able to function.
Yeah, but that's not what Catholicism is to a Catholic.
Yeah.
Catholicism is this is objective reality that God handed us, and we're going to follow this.
But my argument that I was trying to bring up earlier, probably eventually with the transgender rights movements and everything, what if a male changes to a female and then they are able to genetically engineer or modify their body to produce offspring? Does that change the dynamic of whether or not it should be acceptable for a man and a man turned to female to be able?
No, because the church believes that man and woman are not mutable characteristics. Like,
I cannot fathom that the church is able to predict that, you know, within the span of like 200 years, we're able to change our biology to be able to produce.
I don't mean, like, the church doesn't think that, like, it's impossible to, you know, create an artificial womb and, I don't even know, combine two semen and use some science to make some freaking...
Yeah, not that that's possible now. I'm not saying it's possible now, but like, it could be possible.
It's not the church's position that that's impossible. It's the church's position that you are created a man or a woman, and that changing that is denying the reality of yourself. Like that what that means is that being a man or a woman is an intrinsic quality of your being, not just like people often reference DNA, like because like oftentimes DNA, like, it's like the easy thing to say, like, oh, you have an X and a Y, but like the church doesn't, it's not because you have an X and a Y, it's like it's an integral part of your being, maybe your soul almost, like changing your gender is, or, you know, getting surgery or doing science to do whatever to your body to make it function differently is denying, or it's changing the reality of how you were created by God, if that makes sense.
I mean, but there are still like lots of females, they act like, they're not act like, they feel like they are, like they act as tomboys, or they feel like they are men, right? Like to them, their soul is that they are supposed to be that, right? And if they were born into that position, if they were born a boy and they were to have a relationship with a girl, they would have no problem being religious. You know, I'm trying to look at religion, you know, X amount of years in the future and say, like, if that was not a roadblock, I feel like a lot more people would be receptive to.
Right, but religion is, it's not an effort of practicality. The goal of religion is not to be like, how many, like, what can we do to just, no matter what, get as many members as possible. It's a pursuit of absolute truth, and that's the thing. You can't just change what you think about the truth just so you can get more people. It's the church, because we think if you corrupt the truth and say it's something else, then that'll move people away from God. And so a corrupt religion that gets more people is not more helpful, because it's not the truth, if that makes sense. So like it's understandable that what Catholics teach and believe is unpopular, and that, you know, changing what we think to accommodate the freedoms and choices of more people would make it more popular, just isn't relevant, because it denies what we think is the truth. And it's just about it's the church is the truth trumps practicality, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's a very difficult thing for a lot of people. It's very hard to choose things that aren't self-serving for people who don't have a religious moral compass. So I understand what you're saying.
I mean, I absolutely understand that. You're right.
But at the same time, it is a distinct difference between just choosing what is enjoyable in the moment as opposed to choosing who you are. In essence, it's very hard for a lot of people, because it isn't like, I really just want to eat cookies or whatever else, and I'm just going to be a bad person, eat cookies. They're like, being able to be yourself in the sense that you are homosexual is a much harder thing to choose not to be than to eat cookies. You know, like cookies is like a temporary fix to.
I mean, you're absolutely right. The thing about Catholicism, and it's why, because I thought about it a little bit beforehand I introduced myself, is that the most important thing about Catholicism is your identity is you're a child of God first. There's actually sort of a debate in Catholicism right now whether being a gay Catholic is a valid statement, because like as a Catholic we would say you're just a Catholic, whether you're gay, man, woman, straight,
Mexican,
a sinner, black, white. It's just not, it's so much less relevant than that you're a child of God. And so like you can, it's understandable that that's an identity that people have, and that it's hard to give that up and accept what Catholic teaching says, but it's about your relationship with God. If you believe you're a child of God and you believe the truths, if you believe that what the Catholic Church teaches is the truth, then hopefully you'll be willing to sacrifice the parts of your life that that the church would teach to be sinful in order to follow what Catholics think is the truth. I understand that it's hard, and it's definitely hard for Catholics to reach out to people who are homosexual or have a different gender identity than what they were assigned at birth. But as I said before, we can't compromise on the truth for what would get us more people.
I understand. Anything you want to add to it, Dave?
I'm just going to reiterate your point. You're not picking a build for your civilization religion, right? You're locked into what it is. It is what it is at the end of the day.
And I want to reiterate, I mean, I respect Ben for, being able to talk on these points. It's hard for like any Catholic to be able to defend some of these points. And I've talked to Ben about some of this stuff before, so I know that he'd be able to handle himself in the conversation. I'm not going to like get too crazy with it because I respect him as a person. And
I'll put you on the spot with their training.
I throw a little bit of hardball, but at the same time, I respect him. He's living a good life. If you are heterosexual or whatever else, I see not many reasons to not believe in faith if it's in your wheelhouse. If it's something that you can, find yourself believing in, because it makes a lot of sense to me. It just, that's one big aspect of it that is a really big driving force for why I physically couldn't do it.
It's so funny to me just how we analyze and come at things differently. Like, your analysis is such a practical analysis. It's such like it makes sense of, if you're heterosexual, how like this would make sense and would bring meaning. And like, it's such a different analysis than like, as a Catholic, it's like, why do anything? Like this is I mentioned this before the show, but like this is why it's so interesting to me where people derive their meaning from. Because like as a Catholic, like the most important thing is the meaning. It's the why. Why do anything at all? And so it's like practical. Having a practical outlook only like it feels to me only makes sense if you have like a baseline that you believe is the truth, for that practicality to point to or away from, I guess. I don't know. I just think it's really interesting talking and seeing that different analysis and perspective. That's it.
Tim, what is your why?
My why?
Yeah, your why. So the thing that drives your practicality.
I'm just here for the ride, baby. I mean, like, I do. So, like, I think I was born, like, maybe, like, 10, 20 years too soon. I would think I would be much more adept at navigating an entirely technological world. Like, if I was born back in, like, the colonial era, I would hate it. I would just hate it. It's like your whole purpose is like waking up and working, right? Regardless if you're a slave or just the, common white folk, whatever. Like, your whole purpose is, like, working and believing in God. Like, that I can, Based. I have the. Like,
He's like, sign me up. Get me back there.
Now I see why Dago really wants. But no, I mean, like, I get it. But me personally, like, I can see the marvel, like what we're doing here, like all this stuff around us. It's crazy. Like the whole ability to communicate with people across the world that we'll never see or meet, that speak completely different languages probably, or live in completely different parts of the world instantaneously over the internet. That's a marvel that that's possible. Like that is reason enough, I think, to believe that some kind of being beyond us could exist. Because if we were just born from rock and stone and solar energy, why does all of this need to exist?
Yeah. Why does math work?
Okay, why does math work?
Why are there protons and electrons?
Why do I learn it in 9th grade? Motherfucker. All right. Question number 5 is shot takes. Let's get it popping.
Oh, I love this one.
Oh, great.
All right. Question number 5.
No, it's the tequila. Hold on a sec.
Uh-oh.
That's the sound of bad news.
That's the sound of Cope. Cope in a can. Down the hatch. 3.
Oh, can you pray for Actually, I don't know if that's allowed. Thanks, Ben.
Amen.
It might actually do something.
If there's a miracle here, will you convert?
Let's not get that far. I'm trying to have an existential crisis right now. I'm just trying to have alcohol and talk about religion. God, it's so bad.
Why do you drink something you hate? I don't understand.
It's only one of them. It's only one of the 6.
Why did I make all 6 something you like?
It's roulette. It's like gambling, except the only result is bad.
Sounds like my life, baby.
All right, moving on. I'm gonna get into your deep Catholic knowledge. You ready?
Yep.
This is what I want to know. This is what I want to know as a Protestant. I'm gonna take it back. A former Protestant, I'm gonna take it back, and we're gonna talk about it.
Yeah. So for context, Dave submitted this question.
Yes.
Based.
What do you think is in the Vatican Archives? What are you hiding from us? What is in there, Ben?
The Vatican Archives.
There's multiple parts in case you don't have much to go off of.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a lot to go off on this question. One of the things that's very funny to me, it's Fatima. Not really, I don't know, whatever. But there's this one like Catholic conspiracy theory that like there's like Fatima was some, it doesn't matter. Fatima was is another Marian apparition. But like Mary revealed like 3 prophecies or something, and like 2 of them were like revealed to the public. There's like a Catholic conspiracy that the Vatican is holding on to like the 3rd revelation at Fatima, and it hasn't released it. It's I don't know.
What were the other 2? Were they substantial?
Why are you asking about the other 2? I want to know what the 3rd one is.
I want to know if the other 2 have any weight and any bearing on the real.
I don't remember any of them. You'd have to look it up.
Oh my goodness, I gotta look this up. I gotta know.
Fatima?
Fatima?
FHAT.
I mean, if you just search, if you search that, I'm sure it'll autocorrect you if it's wrong.
Yeah, I mean that is interesting. So, like, what is like holy enough to be stored in the Vatican Archives, and why isn't that a publicly accessible
I don't know
archive?
I know so little about the Vatican Archives. When I say it's a conspiracy theory, that just means I've heard some YouTubers talk about it.
Yeah,
and that's like it.
Wait, Catholic YouTubers?
Or just Catholic YouTubers.
What do they do?
Talk about
Make YouTube videos. I mean, I would like the 2
because that's why Jesus Christ is.
I can't say that. I would say I would say the 3 biggest Catholic YouTubers are Bishop Robert Barron, Father Mike Schmitz, and Trent Horn. Or at least those are the ones I know the most about.
Okay.
I don't know. They just talk about the faith. Make videos about different Catholic topics. A lot of most of them are geared towards Catholics. It's like, a video about like what do you do when you're feeling doubt in your prayer? What do you feel when God isn't there? Why does the church? In fact, it's actually very funny when you were talking about do you believe in ghosts? The first thing I thought of is there's a Father Mike Schmitz video about ghosts.
Oh yeah.
And that's actually where I basically sourced all my information about what I told you about ghosts is the Father Mike Schmitz video about ghosts. Yeah, there's definitely Catholic YouTubers, including priests.
So where I wanted to go with this, Dave may have had a different way he wanted to go with this.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know anything about the Vatican Archives. I really can't.
Allegedly,
when you turn 14, they give you all the secrets.
Oh no, I knew it.
It's like the Church of Scientology when you reach Satan level 0.
Yeah, what level do I have to pay for to get to the Vatican Archives there, Ben? I looked up the 3 secrets, and really the only controversy is that it might not be the whole thing. It's kind of in depth. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay, so we'll pass on it if it's a little boresome. So my big thing about the Vatican Archives. So this is a very compelling argument, and I'm not sure you might even have the answer, but feel free to give your opinions on it. So, back in, I think it was like 2020, 2021, somewhere in that range, we used DNA typing to catch the Golden State Killer, which is some family member went to some kind of heredity site that let them trace their lineage.
Right.
And because that person submitted their DNA to the archive, they were able to use that family member's DNA to compare to the DNA that was found on evidence and determine who the actual killer was. If you were to go into the Vatican Archives and DNA test an artifact that was confirmed touched by Jesus, could you not trace the heredity of Jesus? And would finding a male-female pair for Jesus disprove his prophecy as being a son of God?
No. Well, first of all, because I'm sure Jesus had an entire set of DNA. I don't really know what to say about that, because like Jesus was immaculately conceived, so God, I assume, could have put whatever DNA he wanted in Jesus.
So he was the first, what's that thing they talk about being a thing in the future where you can, like a gene baby, you know, like you could pick what genes you want for your baby. He was the first one of those guys.
Yeah,
So
I
it was like The
guess.
Sims.
Character creator.
So what's
God clicked woohoo on Mary.
Stop.
what's heresy? What's interesting
And
is
Mary's just
there
in the bed
is-
by herself and it's spinning. It's just spinning,
So
the
what-
dust cloud.
What's interesting to me is there is actually a Eucharistic miracle where a priest had the host turn into like flesh as he was consecrating it, and that miracle is preserved, and they blood typed it, and Jesus and they blood typed it. It was AB positive blood. So like, I assume you can do the same thing. Like you could also probably DNA test it.
Should they
Jesus
do
was a human, so of course you'd have a whole set of DNA.
What if they DNA tested that and then DNA tested something that had Jesus' blood on it and it matched? Checkmate, Protestants. It actually does transfigure.
I do think that is a valid way to prove that he was a mortal man fully, right? That he has a lineage that goes beyond a father, goes beyond that. I'm not sure how
Right. Well, what I think is, I don't know what like divine DNA would even look like. He had normal human DNA, I imagine. Like, it's just,
You don't know that until you test it.
It doesn't seem like that relevant of a question.
How
to me.
is it irrelevant?
Because he's a human. Like,
he
of
was
course you're gonna find
conceived-
human DNA.
You would think that if he was solely conceived by Mary's DNA, or Mary, right?
He literally can't be a clone of Mary because he had a Y chromosome because he's a guy.
Yeah, so he had some godlike Y chromosome.
But the thing is, even if you found that Y chromosome, what would you even link it to? It's not like we have like Joseph's DNA or like literally any other
you could compare
first century Jew DNA.
Based on the DNA and how it's configured, you could trace which region that other pair is from. Like,
I bet it comes from Israel.
But like, that's the thing. Like, I'm sure he looked like a first century Jew. Like,
can you explain that?
Can I explain that?
What are you trying to get him in trouble?
Like,
Was he white or black?
Oh my god.
He lived in the Middle East. We don't know exactly what skin color people in the Middle East. It was probably not like European white, but it probably wasn't like, African black. It's probably something in the middle, brownish. Like, that's probably what he looked like. I don't know.
I don't know what to think about any of this. I was trying to bring nice, thoughtful, scientific debate to this, and Ben's being extra.
I guess it's just not that relevant to me what the second half of Jesus' DNA would be. That's not Mary's DNA.
I don't know. I think it's compelling.
Be whatever.
Let me back you up and say I want to see. I would want to see it. Let's do it.
Can we get a petition signed to
get
DNA type Jesus' DNA before it becomes old, crusty, and dusty, and not able to be
It's
actually
2,000 years old. What do you mean? It's already old and crusty.
more crusty, and more dusty.
We'll get that blood from the Eucharistic miracle, and we'll DNA test that. I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. You cross-reference the two. They come out to be the same.
Well,
Check
I don't know what you would do with the result. Like, it's like, oh look, here's his DNA. Nothing. Like,
nothing. What do you mean nothing?
I mean, like, I obviously, if you found the DNA and it's like, wait a minute, this is like a 13th century like British guy's DNA, then you'd be like, that's kind of weird. But like, if it's just like a first century Jew's DNA, it's like, That's just not interesting. It's not that useful.
Tim, what are you expecting to see? Like 28 chromosomes, or like what? What are you
It's
trying
just
to?
like, I know that was it like Mary's statue or something that like bled or something? What was that?
It was so specifically this miracle was the body and blood. Like so, in the Catholic Church, we take bread and we say.
He's getting there.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
And so we say this, let this be the body of Christ or something like that, and then it becomes the body of Christ. So much technicalities, don't need to get into it. But in this miracle, it literally physically became the heart valve flesh of like heart valve human flesh. That's the miracle. And so they blood type tested the blood in that flesh. And that's where they got AB positive. I don't know if they DNA tested it. Maybe they did, but
I was talking about the statue that bled.
The statue that blood. Oh,
Statue of Mary.
Yeah, I've heard of that. I don't know enough about it.
Did they save a vial of that blood?
I don't know.
Can we test that?
Cross-reference that with the flesh.
Is that going to be generic?
I don't know, maybe that's Mary's blood. I don't know.
Yeah, but Mary's blood would have half of the chromosomes of the flesh.
It would have
in theory.
It would probably have to have. I don't know what the dominant allele in blood type. Because I know AB positive means it has all of the. I don't know. It doesn't. It's just. I don't know. To me, this is like in theory, like if you're trying to like prove or disprove a miracle. This makes sense to me. Like, yeah, if this blood is like not related at all or is irrelevant, then it's like, oh man, that's kind of maybe not really a miracle. Someone probably maybe manufactured that.
It came back like 3%. Like,
right, but like what the DNA is of Jesus is just not that interesting to me, I guess.
Yeah, I guess you would have a denier still, right? Like even if they were like, see, he is a man, and he was from England and went. Yeah. You know, they would just be like, "Oh, well, that wasn't really the blood of Jesus." You
the joke I was gonna make is it'd be like 3% like Genghis Khan. It's like Genghis up in heaven too. You menace!
Got Genghis in my Jesus.
Genghis knows no bounds. But yes, I think it's compelling. Me personally, at least to test it before it becomes untestable, before the DNA is completely deteriorated. Why not at least catalog it to know it?
I don't really know that. I don't know how fast DNA deteriorates, so I don't know if it really becomes untestable. Like if you have a strand of hair. Like, how long does it take before that becomes untestable?
Well, the hair itself is not testable. It's the follicles of the hair that is testable, which could wither away or be carried by wind or dust or whatever else. And you might be like, maybe somebody touching this thing got their DNA on it.
The Eucharistic miracle is held in like a sealed container specifically because, like, you know, this is the blood, we think that's Christ, so we don't want anyone to like touch it and mess it up or anything like that. So it's already kept in like. Do you think that
some like deviant like bishop is just down there just like
what is wrong with you? What is wrong with
needs his daily hit of Christ?
No, he doesn't need that. He's putting marijuana in the incense dispenser anyway.
He's like, oh yeah, that's a good shit.
What on earth?
Who knows? It could be, right? Like, you don't know what he's doing behind closed doors. Jesus could be into it. Could be into it.
It comes from the earth.
Do you think Jesus masturbated?
No. Because I don't think Jesus committed a sin.
Really? That's like a thing?
Yeah.
Well, masturbation's a sin in Catholicism.
Even in his youth?
Yes. He'd have to be the son of God means he's not.
See, this is why you couldn't have a Jesus in modern day society because the standards are just so damn high. Are you kidding me? He definitely masturbated. Jesus definitely cranked one out every now and then. Every now and then, dude, because he barely even believed he was the son of God himself. So, like, before that point,
where are you getting that from?
As far as I know, he had to like accept the fact that he was the son of God, right? He went out to the desert and did his whole thing. Is that wrong? If I'm wrong, fucking correct me.
I mean, according to basically every Christian denomination, that's wrong. I mean,
All right.
It's interesting because, well, here's the thing. I took a Jesus the Jew class in college, which was taught by a Jewish professor.
Well, fuck me. I didn't take no Jesus college course.
My point is he had not a dissimilar opinion to that, because obviously he's Jewish, so he didn't believe that Jesus was the Messiah. His opinion was that Jesus was a religious zealot that was trying to evoke God to act against Rome by,
Claiming to be the Messiah?
right. I don't know. Something like that. I don't know. It's complicated too, because most of the sources we have about Jesus are religiously oriented. The ones that we have that are not religiously oriented basically just say Jesus died. That's it. That's all they say. Jesus was crucified. That's
Josephus is like, yeah, he was there.
Yeah,
And now they're all over the place.
I seen that shit. That shit was crazy.
Right. and all the other sources are religiously biased. So you gotta take them with that bias in mind.
I don't know.
So.
As a gay man or a non-believer or whatever else, me personally, I'm willing to believe that someone like Jesus could exist, but more likely than not, just looking at it rationally without religion, like I could certainly see some, like, nothing against like the MAGA movement or whatever else, but I could certainly see people just being hyped up, right? Just being hyped, just like, yeah, this man's doing all this shit.
Right.
And it is like, you get into that like witch hunt, like mentality of like, it's just this wave of misinformation that just like cascades. And it's so hard to dispute because everybody else is just so fervent about it. Right.
Right. Yeah.
And even at the time, clearly the Jewish people and the Romans or whatever else, they still didn't believe it. Right. Like if I was living in that time and somebody was doing all that shit, like if I was like a religious person, I'd be like, well, I got to go see this guy turn water into wine. I got to go see what this guy's capable of, right? Like, why would you not go make that your mission to figure out if it's a verifiable thing? Sorry. Anyway, all right, let's move on to the next question. I was getting a little off the handle. We got 20 minutes left. And we'll do.
Let me spin this because I don't know what my last shot will be.
Wow, you must be toasted if you don't know what the last shot is.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Yep. That's good.
All right, question number 6. Where do you see the Catholic Church in 100 years?
Catholic Church in 100 years. Probably not that different. Probably still grappling with a lot of secularism in our culture. Okay. I mean, obviously, if I have an optimistic outlook, and honestly, we've kind of already seen a little bit of the turnaround. Like, I feel like Christianity hasn't become like vogue and like it's vogue to be Christian, but it's more vogue to like be culturally Christian. Like there's a lot of people nowadays that are saying like, oh man, we have a lack of meaning in our society and everyone's just going about and just doing whatever the fuck they want. Oh my gosh, I'm clearly buzzed.
He's having a good time. He's having a good time, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen.
And I'm sure you've seen that. I feel like I heard recently that like Richard Dawkins even said like I'm culturally Christian even though I don't believe in Christianity or something like that, because like a society without a meaning or cohesion has a lot of issues it runs into.
Yes.
And so like we haven't really seen like a religious turnaround. Like we still are definitely seeing like people are definitely leaving the faith more than they're coming back to the faith. But hopefully I would hope that there would be more of a religious turnaround, but I'm not that optimistic.
What would be the path for that to happen? Would there be any catalyst that you could see in the foreseeable future that would be a path for, because I feel like it's very divisive in the sense that like it's our way or the highway, right? Like, is there any compromise from the Catholic Church?
I mean, as I said before, if you're looking for compromise on like specific like teachings, then no, you're not going to get that compromise. Mm-hmm. The church definitely changes its teaching on practice sometimes. Like, for example, in the past it was more positive about forceful conversion than it is now. That
would have been Tim's time period.
I mean, I was taking forceful conversion. Listen, dude, if I'm a religious if I'm like, this is it, this is the answer, in my mind, baptizing people and just they're saved for eternity, right? Like,
right. Well, something will. We already talked about that, so I don't want to get into it too much now.
Wait,
again,
what was the? Are you talking about like a suicide cult? Like,
no,
are you Jim Jonah?
No, give them the old bop after they get out of the pool.
just like
The old bop.
I'm glad you're not religious. Keep up with the scientific method thing you got going on, please, because I don't need you out here starting a suicide cult. All right?
No, it isn't a suicide. It's a homicide cult. But yes.
oh no.
I'll be the martyr of Jesus. Just fucking convert half the world.
How are you going to keep people from finding out you're doing that?
I saved half of humanity. No, everybody be on board. Oh,
what are you, Thanos? You're going to snap half of humanity?
But like, I don't mean it just strictly in like the gay marriage sense. I also mean it just like for priesthood, right? So are they willing to compromise and say priests can have relationships now?
That's possible to change.
Yeah,
it's not going to change soon. But it is something that the church. It's not something that's like a moral, like it's not a moral teaching that priests can't get married. It's a practical teaching. So it is something that could change. It's probably not going to change anytime soon. But it's definitely possible it'll change. But the church's goal is not to change to attract more people. The church's goal is to, as I've emphasized this a lot, is to hopefully get more people to agree with the truth that the church, or that at least in the church's opinion, the church teaches. So like as I said, I don't think in 100 years that it'll be that much better, if at all. Like we're still definitely on a downward trajectory of belief in religion, like as countries get more developed. Because it's interesting, because currently in like African and East European nations, which are less developed, Catholicism is bigger, or Christianity in general is bigger.
So it fucking sucks. They need God to get through their everyday struggles.
Well, yeah, they're more conservative too. They haven't had as much liberal philosophy run through their societies we do in the West. I'm sure they will at some point though, because liberal philosophy is apparently very compelling.
I mean, it is the antithesis of. It is actually. It's just. I guess what I shouldn't say. It is free will incarnate, right? Like
liberal philosophy is so interesting to me, because I don't know if you ever watched someone who talks about how culturally Christian the West. Oh my goodness! I definitely cannot have another shot.
No, we have no more
is.
You made it. You're in the home stretch.
But like the idea that every human is equal is originated from Christianity. The idea that people have equal value originated from Christianity, because the idea is that people have equal value in the eyes of God. Like if you remove God from that equation, it's not obvious that people have equal value, right? Like some people are better at fighting, some people are better at playing specific games, or making food or cooking or whatever. Like, people have different talents, and some people have more talents than other, right? Like anyone who's like, has tuberculosis or any other disease, or maybe even a genetic disease, has less physical ability than other people, right? There's not an obvious equality unless you add some like metaphysical element, like a spirit or a soul or something. Like, why is one person equal to another if they don't have a soul? Not really a reason. Dang, the alcohol really makes having a solid train of thought a lot harder.
You're doing fantastic, given what we drank, and like I was mentioning this to Ben before, we drink just enough to get people buzzed, but hopefully not like actually drunk.
I don't know. The problem is just I'm pretty lightweight, so
this is one of the smaller guests we've had. So I respect him. He got through all of it. I mean, you still have pretty logical trains of thought. So I mean, It's fine.
You haven't heard me go, what did you mean by that? I've been doing that to this mofo.
I haven't done one of these to Dave.
You're the one out here throwing homicide call around, so I mean, if there's anybody who kind of rein in, it's you.
It's an extreme example of what it would mean to be religious that would be productive, I guess. A productive.
What do you mean? So being religious right now without killing people is not productive?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the more souls you save, the better. The more, I don't know, like saving one more soul. Like what does save one?
Because free will is the whole point.
He said, what does free will matter if you save one soul?
Living your entire existence without suffering is more important than your free will.
God gave us free will because without free will, love is not possible. Like, if you get rid of free will, then you can't authentically love God. That just like you literally remove the whole point of loving God if you remove all the will.
Yep, it's great being gay. Anyway, next question. The other part of this question is, when's the apocalypse? Where is it?
Oh my God! There's literally a verse in the Bible that says no one knows except God the Father in heaven when the second coming will come. I can't quote it
if
exactly.
you read it in really small text, though, it says except Ben.
What? Except Ben? Oh, yeah. Sorry. It's going to be on December 31st, 2084. So write that down.
Right, I'm writing it down.
I just got that from God now.
Hey, if you're born before 1980, don't worry about it. Just do your thing. It's gonna be all right.
So your answer is don't know, don't care. I can't answer it.
There's a literal quote that says no one except the Father in heaven knows when that hour will come. So
yeah, literally Jesus said that.
Yeah,
Jesus didn't know.
So. There's no way. I honestly don't understand why there's so many like Christian end times stuff, because that's literally a quote in the Bible. Why is freaking Joseph? I don't think he was actually an end times guy. Whoever the Seventh-day Adventist guy was, like why do people believe in that? It's in the Bible.
You got crazy ancient aliens vibes going on right now. Can you do one of these?
Aliens.
Can you do religion? No, you gotta curve the hands of it. Religion.
All right, I think we should land this, Tim, before he reaches across the table and strangles you.
Yeah, Ben's in Crusader stance right now, like paladins in World of Warcraft.
Deus Vult.
You know, Tim, you're really converting me on this like forcing thing here.
I knew I'd get through you eventually. Well, thank you for coming, Ben. Is there anything else you'd like to mention before we bring this podcast to a close?
No, I guess I just that Tim's wrong. I'm right. Believe in God, focus on the relationship, just love him. Don't be cringe. That's it.
Don't be cringe. Does he represent the cringe side of the argument?
No.
What does he represent?
He represents the the ignorant but cool side of the argument.
Yeah, that's right. Tim, ignorant but cool.
I actually retract that because I hate people who say that. I can't think. It's so annoying.
All right, I'm gonna land us. We're gonna.
Please check me out of this one.
Ben, you did great. I'm so glad you came on. This was a lot of fun. I mean, I got to talk about religion with somebody who's actually religious and can, kind of hold their own and explaining stuff. But it was a lot of fun. I'm glad you came on, and I hope everybody enjoyed that. And without further ado, think responsibly, viewers.
What?
That's the end.
You ruined the ending.
I literally didn't understand what you said.
He said, think responsibly, viewers.
Think responsibly.
That's how he ends each episode.
I understand now. Yes.
What am I going to do with you? Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye, everybody.